Hanson-Young.
Thank you, Madam Deputy President. I rise to take note of the question and answer put forward by my colleague, Senator Whish-Wilson, earlier today, and that is in relation to the great threat that the Great Barrier Reef is under due to—
Senator Hanson-Young, who was the question to?
It was to the Senator Hume representing the Environment Minister. It was in relation to a question to the Environment Minister through Senator Hume in relation to the great threat to the Great Barrier Reef because of climate change. The UN body responsible for World Heritage listing and managing and overseeing World Heritage sites has been very concerned with the health of the Great Barrier Reef, and earlier this week declared that the Great Barrier Reef is under such stress, such danger from climate change, that they want to list it as such. Now, this is one of the world's greatest reefs, one of the world's most precious environmental places, one of Australia's most precious spots. It is what is iconic around the world in relation to Australia. It is what the rest of the world thinks of when they think of the land down under. And it is under threat because of climate change and the mismanagement of our environment. Nemo is under threat because of Mr Barnaby Joyce, his obsession with coal and the fossil fuel industry, and, of course, the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison. In fact, Prime Minister Scott Morrison and Barnaby Joyce, as the Deputy Prime Minister, are killing Nemo on the Great Barrier Reef. That's what's going on here. And the world is watching and they are horrified. And they know that Australia has understood that this threat has been there for a long time. But of course, when the UN made this declaration earlier this week, we heard from the government here and the Environment Minister herself, Susan Ley, that they were blindsided. Well, what absolute rubbish. If you're blindsided, despite all of the warnings from the scientists, despite all of the work that's been going on, despite all of the warning signs, all of the conversations, all of the money that has been spent by this government, then you're either incompetent or you're trying to pull the wool over the eyes of not just the Australian people but the rest of the world. Now, Australia should be ashamed that our government has let the Great Barrier Reef deteriorate to this level. Bleaching event after bleaching event. And still, on the international stage, we have Australia's Prime Minister arguing for less action on climate change. We have our Resources Minister promoting selling more fossil fuels overseas. We have ministers in this place pretending that the science of climate change can just be ignored. No one at UNESCO and not many Australians were shocked or blindsided by the decision and the announcement that the Great Barrier Reef is under great threat from climate change. Year 8 students in South Australia know that the climate is killing our reef. Scientists have been warning the Australian government that this would happen. In this very place, the Greens have been warning the government that we needed to act faster. It is just absolute rubbish for the minister to suggest that she was blindsided.
Willfully blind.
She was either willfully blind or she's incompetent. Make no mistake, as we head to the election either at the end of this year or into next year, Australians will remember that this is the government that has killed Nemo, that has funnelled more money to the fossil fuel industry, and that is overseeing the death of the Great Barrier Reef. And while the rest of the world is crying out for more ambition to tackle climate change and to reduce pollution, We have our Deputy Prime Minister side by side with the Prime Minister of Australia taking money from fossil fuel companies and wanting to pollute more.